Hello and good afternoon, good evening, good day to you, whatever time of day it is where you are. Hello, and today we're going to talk about a very emotive subject that popped up on my social media. This is all about the World War II treatment of the Jewish population by the Germans. As we all know, 8,600,000 were killed. There's no other word for it, but it was catastrophic and determined. Now, the article refers to the time before they started their rampage. This article is in Life News. I've not come across it before. However, it was topical because I saw it was about disabled people. As we all know, the Aryan race, they wanted to have a pure breed of people to rule the world. Ahaha! Rule the world! Yes, so, but obviously we know very little about history, but we do know about things such as the catastrophic treatment of a whole nation of people made to feel inferior and worthless and, taking up space in the world when they shouldn't be. Does that sound very familiar? Because I think it does. What with all of the UN, the United Nations reports that we've had detailing how disabled people are being treated in this country over the years, and we know why. It's the Tory party policies that we've had to endure for the last 10, 12 years. And unfortunately, with Boris still in power, the abuse will continue, because I think that, unfortunately, it's got through to the average person in the world, the average Joe on the street. It would appear that attitudes toward the disabled people has changed. There are obviously lots of decent people out there. However, there are also a growing number of people who would abuse you, would treat you badly, and quite clearly there are many more cases of abuse online and actually in person. And as you all know, I've documented the abuse I've had over the years, and I've not really come to terms with the fact that normal people can do and say what they say and what they do towards me, which is just another human being, just another person. I just happen to have a disability. They use that disability to try and justify how they perceive me. Certainly, the comments of late have been referring to my educational level and the fact that they consider me to be below average IQ. And this would explain the way that I fight back, the way that I defend myself, and the way that I do not let these people walk all over me, because I live my life how I want to live, not how I'm told to live. The problem is that this article is all about, not only about the war, which, we're talking now 60, 70 years ago, but it's also relevant because of today's attitudes towards people with disabilities. Certainly this whole neo-Nazi thing, which has been referenced in a social media outlet by friends of myself who have experienced it. So these neo-Nazi members have seen fit to verbally and physically abuse friends of mine purely because they are disabled people. So beginning in 1939, 300,000 disabled people were gassed or given a lethal injection and cremated in 6 facilities in Germany and Austria. This helped the Nazi regime to refine the processes for processing millions rather than just a few 100,000 victims. And it was the predecessor to the whole extermination of a Jewish race. I first discovered that people with disabilities were sterilised and killed by the Nazis when I was a teenager, watching the TV miniseries Holocaust in 1978, but it would be years before I understood the connection between the killing of disabled and the killing of Jews and other undesirables, all of whom were, in one way or another, deemed unfit. The Germans had a name for this whole process, and it was the Action T4 euthanasia program. So the horrific genocide of 6 million Jews was in fact only the final chapter of the Holocaust story. And of course, you will not hear much about the small number of disabled people who were basically murdered. The detail of how it happened, and particularly the role of doctors in the process, is not at all well known. What ended in the 1940s in the gas chambers at Auschwitz, Dachau and Treblinka had much more humble beginnings in the 1930s in nursing homes, geriatric hospitals and psychiatric institutions in Germany. When the Nazis arrived, the medical profession was ready and waiting. What kind of society do we want to be? Those of us who live with disabilities are at the forefront of a larger discussion of what constitutes a valued life. What is a life worth living? Too often the lives of those of us who live with disabilities are not valued and feared. At the root of this fear is misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and a lack of knowledge of disability history and thus disabled lives. Certainly, from my own experience within the last few years, the idea that these people who attack me do have very little understanding, and they claim to have done research about my condition, and they try to use that as justification. And quite clearly they have absolutely zero idea. And you can read Wikipedia to your heart's content, but that will never explain an individual person, the same as it will never explain why these people do what they do, their motivation. And unfortunately, we are moving towards this again with what the Conservative government are continuing to do with persecution and, making people hate disabled people by putting them in the pariah situation where they are seen as scroungers, benefit scroungers, waste of space and not worth bothering with. So it's only one step to being eliminated from the future life. But my point would be, who has the right to decide who lives, who dies? Certainly, nobody's going to make the choice for me. And if there is a choice to be made, I will make it. And maybe choose to get rid of all these people who are judgmental and these people that are very close-minded and prejudiced. Maybe they should go. Maybe that would be a better world for everybody. Would be, let's just have disabled people in it. In an ideal world, let's get rid of all the able-bodied people. Yeah, let's do that. And I can hear the able-bodied people going, you can't do that. Oh, wow. When the shoe is on the other foot. Anyway, have a good day. Bye for now.